Ko tēnā tātou katoa. I te taha tōku māma no Airani Wōku Tūpuna. I tai mai rātou i te tau kotahi manu warurau ono tekau. I te taha tōku pāpā no Kotirana Wōku Tūpuna. I tai mai rātou i te tau kotahi manu warurau whātakau mātahi. Nō reira he Pākehā ahau, he tangata tiriti ahau. I tipu ake ahau i Porirua. Engari ko Tamaki Makaurau, tōku kāinga aine. Ko Stacey Henare tōkunga. So kia ora koutou. On the side of my mum, my ancestors are from England and Ireland, and they arrived in the 1860s. And on my dad's side, my tūpuna are from Scotland, and they arrived in 1841. So therefore, I don't really have any home other than Aotearoa. So I'm Pākehā, I am tangata tiriti, a person of the treaty. I was raised in Porirua for my whole life until 4 years ago. Now we live in Auckland. Yeah.
Kia ora tātou. I te tau tōku māma no Ingarangi ahau. I whānau mai ai ahau I reira I rārana ki te tonga. Ki tērā rohe ko Sussex tērā no reira I tō ao mua ko taku accent I taua wā ko. He was well fit in that. Ko ai tērā I taku tauhitanga. Hoi anō I te tau tōku pāpā no ngā kōkunga e whao te taitokera ahau. I nā noatu no Ngāti Hine no ngā puhi hoki. He minita māua I te hahi mihinari. He kaikore o Māori ahau he tauira taku wahine. Ki te whai I tana tohu ki te tū. Hei atuatanga, hei iho atua. So kia ora, my name is Sam Henare. On the side of my mum, I am from Sussex in the UK. I was born over there, and I won't do the accent again, you guys don't need to hear that again. On the side of my father, I am from everywhere in Taitokero, from under Te Wharetapu o Ngāpuhi, but most specifically from Ngāti Hine and from Ngāpuhi. We're both ministers in Te Hahi Mihinari, which is the Māori Anglican Church. I'm a kaiako reo Māori and my wife is a student studying to get her degree in theology. Yeah, that's us. We have 3 children as well there. You'll see them running around.
So, I mean, I've known Sam for like forever from back in Sussex. But yeah, so, and many of you would have known, if you're old school in King's Church, you'd have known these guys from quite a few years ago. So you've just said that you are now Anglican ministers in the Māori Church, and that's 5 years ago you were part of the King's family here. And we know it, I mean, Jackie and I have done a lot, you've just spent so much time with these guys, we love them to bits. But that's a huge difference in the last 5 years. So can you tell us a little bit of your journey and how you got there?
So I'm trying to think, back in 2014, both Sam and I, we went over to Cambodia for kind of a time of mission over there. At the time, we thought we would be there forever, potentially. That was what we felt strongly called to, or so we thought. And so we went over for a time to serve, and we were really surprised. Within our first few weeks of being there, actually, we felt really strongly about the people of Aotearoa, actually, and about who were on our own doorstep. And so we returned with the kind of expectation that we would somehow begin to connect more with the community around us. At the time, we thought that was more about potentially learning like Samoan or a Pacific Island language and connecting with community in Porirua. However, I might pass it on to you. There was a significant moment for you.
Yeah. So when we came back from Cambodia, Jack Boys, wherever he is, Jack Boys, he actually entered. Sorry, you guys some of you have probably heard the story so many times, but I enjoy it, so I'm going to keep talking about it. Jack actually entered a competition for this to win tickets for us to go to this conference in Rotorua, and so he entered it by writing one of his songs. Which actually I was thinking before, I really love that song. I haven't heard that song in ages. But Jack won the competition. And so while we were still overseas, he goes, do you want to come with me to this conference in Rotorua? And so I was like, sure. So we both went along to that together for a week long. It was run by a crew from Te Aroha up north by Waihi area. But we had strong links into Jesus culture in Bethel. So we went along to this conference, and it was cool. I mean, to be honest, one of the main reasons I went was just to hang out with Jack after not seeing him for a long time. But I remember we were both standing during this time of worship. And at that point, these two busloads of young people from a place called Kaharo turned up. Kaharo? Kawero turned up, and while we were sitting in there, all these young people came in from Kawero, and they're going through this worship time. And in the middle of this worship time, some of these young people, they broke out into a haka. Now, although I am Māori, I didn't always grow up knowing that side of my whakapapa. And so this was kind of a new thing to me. And although also growing up in New Frontiers and amongst the charismatic movement, I wasn't necessarily someone who would feel the Holy Spirit in a tangible way. I was always that guy who, when a whole load of people would fall down, I'd just be pushed to the back looking super awkward at the back of the room. But for some reason, when this youth group broke into this haka, I just couldn't help but I just began to cry, and I'm just not really a teary kind of person. So I remember going, God, I don't know what is happening right now. And then it felt like, I was so confused, but my heart was just melting at the same time. And I think from that moment on, we began to really just feel a heart for the tangata whenua of Aotearoa. And so from that moment on, we went to learn some te reo, and it was kind of our first step into it, and mispronouncing everything and botching everything up. But that was kind of our first step into that. Yeah. Is there anything you want to add from there? And so from that moment on, I went to night classes for about 2 years straight at that point. You went for the first year as well, and Mum and Dad were there as well. I was writing rude things on Dad's books before he'd hand them in to the teacher, just to be funny. And then we actually felt that at that point it was time for me to switch. I was an electrician at the time, and so we felt, as we were beginning to step out a little bit at a time, we began to feel that it was right for me to drop my job as an electrician and go back to university to study, or go for the first time to university to study. And that was to study Te Reo Māori at that time. So I went there for a few years. Do you want to take over from here?
Yeah, I mean, at that time when Sam went to university, I was on board with supporting him, and I could see, I could sense that God was in what he was doing in Sam. I was very removed from it at that point. I sort of focused on having our children. That was kind of my priority. I felt a little bit left behind in the reo. I was really supportive of Sam, but I was also probably his biggest hurdle, I guess, as well. So I definitely played devil's advocate in everything he was learning and sharing. I was quite closed off to learning any history, any language. I don't think I realised the struggle for me was as he entered into something, I thought it was going to be one thing. I thought he'd just go and do his history papers, go and do his Māori papers, but our life would carry on in the same kind of trajectory. But that wasn't the case. It was quite significantly different, and was kind of drawn into a whole new cultural world, I guess. So that was a real struggle, and for a few years there, I was not at all interested or engaged. You convinced me to go to a conference, a Christian Māori conference. Was terrified about going. It was like a noho marae, stay overnight, which also was not pleasant, or not what I was used to. But it was this incredible time of worship, an incredible time of connecting with real life people who were engaging in this kaupapa. And you couldn't not be changed, I think, by that space. And so literally from that weekend on, we kind of sensed on the way home that something had shifted. It was definitely a heart thing, a God thing that had to happen. And so from that point on, then I went from being his biggest hurdle to hopefully his biggest supporter. And then we'll carry on from there.
Yeah, then when we went into lockdown, I got asked by a man called Andy McCulloch to do a video for a project that he was doing, a kaupapa he was doing in the UK, which was a New Frontiers kaupapa, all about talking about how we kind of reaching different people groups across the world. So I did this very embarrassing video at that time. And I remember it because I did, and so it's one thing when you're talking to people who don't know anything about a kaupapa, when you're talking to people who really know it. And so I remember doing this vague kind of introduction to Te Tiriti o Waitangi and different bits and pieces that over the other side of the world would have been fine. But then the video started to come around in Aotearoa. I was so embarrassed because I said some very broad blanket statements in there, which are fine, but anyway, it was very embarrassing. However, off the back of it, during lockdown, we actually got invited by a man called Bishop Kito, who is the Māori Bishop of Northland. He approached us and said, would we consider moving up to Tamaki, up to Auckland, to be involved in Tahi Mihinari up there. One of the elders at our marae had passed away, and so he said, would you come up and help to lead karakia at the marae? And this kind of came out of nowhere for us, and it was, I remember having this chat with him and saying to him, look, I don't think you quite know what you're asking of us to do this. Like, we're in New Frontiers for a reason, because we believe in the kaupapa. We don't know anything about Tahi Mihinari and the Māori Anglican Church. I remember having this backwards and forwards and praying with friends about it and everything. And in the end, Kito said to us, well, why don't you come up to your marae and we'll just come to one of the karakia and we can pray for you guys and we'll see how it goes. So we ended up going up to this karakia. So our marae Motatau is up. I don't know how well you know Te Tai Tokiro, but hopefully people know where Waitangi is. It's about half an hour south of Waitangi. So we flew up there and we're at the karakia there. And then I think Stacey.
Yeah. We were obviously weighing up whether or not this was the right thing for us at this time. I mean, Sam says that it kind of came out of nowhere, and he's right in saying that. However, there had been sort of probably the year leading up to that, quite a deep sense of discontent about wanting to pursue some particular areas or different things that we felt like God was calling us into. So anyway, we kind of went with very little expectation out to the marae. And as we were driving as you head up in towards the marae, it's on a long rural road, there's the urupa, the cemetery up on the hill. And as we drove past, there was just this odd, and I cannot explain it with my own, like, it's not logical and I can't make sense of it, but I just felt this insane, so Pete's dad is buried there. And as we drove past, it just dawned on me that was Sam's granddad who was here on this land and in this place. And there was just like this overwhelming sense of, I don't know, connection or something that I definitely couldn't explain, other than the sense that I felt like it was God, like affirming our place there and a sense of connection there. So yeah, we came back from that weekend. We went really, really unsure, really weighing up, and we came back feeling actually quite sure, really, that in 2 days that kind of had really changed our mind, that experience, and felt like it was really the right thing for us to do. So within 3 months, we packed up and had moved to Auckland to kind of begin our season up there of theological study and te reo Māori study, and yeah.
Yeah, so now we're up there as ministers in Tahi Mihinari. We, as part of our responsibilities, we go up to our marae once a month to help run karakia up there. And there's been lots of ups and downs along this journey, but we're very excited because actually next week we start what is going to be the first charismatic service run in Te Reo Māori for the Māori Anglican Church. So that's a very exciting time for us. So that starts next week. So over this weekend, we'd highly appreciate prayers. But yeah, that's us.
Next couple of questions.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. I mean, I remember actually when these guys came back from Cambodia, and I remember we all met in a pub down in Wellington, and I saw you guys come in, and I could tell straight away that first experience had really unsettled you. God had started to do something. I remember saying to Jackie that we're not going to have these guys around for long. We knew that God had dealt with your heart and something about culture when you came back, some of the journey you've said towards, Māori heritage for you, Sam, but the way that it was just been a privilege to walk with these guys, see their heart struggles, see their obedience to God, And so we're thrilled with that. I just want to ask just sort of a question about throughout this journey, can you pinpoint a few sort of specifics of how God led you, or how you heard his voice, how you discern the Spirit?
I mean, do you want to start? Well, I mean, Sam already shared about his experience with the haka at this conference. And to give some context to that, literally the weekend before we moved to Cambodia, there was like a whānau, hui whānau on at the marae that we went to. And Sam, having sort of not felt particularly connected to that place, went along with quite high expectation and hope, thinking maybe this is the time or the place that I'll suddenly feel connected to who I am as a Māori. We went to that weekend, and his literal words as we were driving back to the airport afterwards was like, well, I've tried that, it's not for me, I'm never going to be back there. And it was like we felt it wasn't for you at all. And so the context to that of then coming back with sort of 6-7 months later, going to this conference and you being moved by that haka is very significant, quite a significant point of God softening your heart in that way. I think one of the things I also mentioned was there was that sense of discontent in kind of the year leading up to a lot of this. There was, it's funny you mentioned about sort of thinking we wouldn't be around for very long, because we were feeling a sense of disconnect, but also very, very committed to our church and to our family and our place. And we'd have conversations with you and you'd be like, oh, are you sure, because you're going to go soon? And we'd be like, well, why? We don't think we're going soon. And we were a little bit frustrated. Yeah, that's it. It's Phil's fault. So yeah, just that sense of discontent and leaning into that discontent was definitely a way that we felt like God was moving us and angling us in that direction as well. Little steps.
Yeah, as we were talking about this over the last few days, we couldn't actually sit down and pinpoint a time where we felt God say, right, you're going to Tāmaki, you're going to serve in Te Hauhi Mihinari, you're going to be at your marae, this, and this, which would have been lovely if that happened to start with. But I think what we were talking about is every time we felt God begin to open a door for us, we'd kind of press at it a little bit and be like, right, is this going to happen? And then something else would happen and kind of push us into that next moment. It wasn't as if we just heard from God saying, this is what's happening, but it was a sense of just leaning into him and trusting as we were kind of going that he had the right things in plan for us. And I think that's really important. We really wanted to reiterate that kind of whakaaro tonight, because there are some passions that God has put in us. And it's not as if suddenly, I mean, it can happen, but it's not as suddenly like bang and all of those dreams are fulfilled. And they're certainly still not fulfilled for us. We're still kind of pushing a little bit at a time on these doors, but we just really felt that there may be some things that God has put in people here tonight that hopefully over the next few days, as you continue to press into those things and say, God, is this what you're saying? And God, is this what you're saying? And begin to step into those things, that God will begin to move and open doors for people. And kind of along the way and on that journey, we've had time after time where as we've kind of pushed, then God has kind of breathed on it and blessed us and shown us that actually this is right. I mean, we got all these random funny stories. I remember after we'd moved up there and we were in the Anglican church at the first pōhiri. So the Anglicans can't do a pōhiri without doing a Eucharist, and it takes so long. It's crazy. I remember our first time up there, and we got in this hui for so long, and we felt so out of our place. We weren't used to Anglican tikanga. We weren't used to the tikanga of the pōhiri. And then I remember people were going up to have communion, and I remember sitting in my seat going, I just feel ridiculous. I feel out of place. God, have I made a mistake by coming here? Because this doesn't feel right. Everything feels awkward to me. And we were given these prayer books. Anglicans love a prayer book. And in this prayer book, there was, I was just beginning to look through it and go, what is this book? To me, I was like, why have these guys got a second Bible? This is so strange to me. I remember looking through it, and one of the pages in my prayer book was like folded over. And you know how sometimes when you're in the printing process, some pages like miscut when they cut them? So that had happened to one of the pages. I remember looking at it being like, even my book's rubbish. What's happening? Like, God, why is it? I just don't get it. And I remember I folded out this page and it fell open. This page that had been cut, it was cut on Psalm 139, which is the psalm that my grandfather kind of gave his life to before he passed away. I don't know, I'm getting emotional. But is also on his gravestone. So I remember looking at it at the time and just going, God, I feel so silly here. I feel so out of place, but this feels so right at the same time. And I think we've had just countless moments like that of feeling out of depth and out of place, but then just those little signs, which might not sound like much, but to us, they mean a lot at the time as we feel God breathing on what we're doing. Yeah.
That's cool. Now, just to wrap up quickly then, just talk us through one or two challenges that you've had on the way. And I'm talking more about, a bit more serious than folded over papers that are printed wrong and cut wrong, Sam, all right? So that's all right, that's all right. But no, some of the challenges, you've stepped out and followed God, what are some of the big hits that you've had or big challenges?
So one of the big ones for me particularly it's been a very humbling process. For example, being a Pākehā in a Māori environment, that's had its real challenges at times. There's been a lot of tears. It's just you have to get used to being the odd one out in the room to feel like the minority is a really humbling experience. And so to sit in places literally for a few years where you feel like the dumbest person in the room or like you shouldn't be there, things like that. So it's definitely been a very humbling experience from that point of view of learning to be very self-sacrificial and figure out your own identity and what you can and can't do and who you should be and shouldn't be and in that environment. I think the other one was our for our family, eh?
Yeah. I'll let you finish with that one because you can talk about what Ellie Mae said. But we've got lots of stories of hard times, so please come and talk to us. If you want to hear sob stories, come and talk to us, it's fine. Come and talk to us over the course of the camp. But we really wanted to reiterate the fact that God will begin to put things on people's hearts over the course of this weekend and passions and desires. And you might not hear that voice of God saying, this is what you're being called into, but there may be passions that you've had for a long time. And I just really encourage you over the course of the next few days, just begin to press into what those things are. Begin to say, God, is this where you're taking me? And begin to press in. Someone might have visions of, I know we want to look after all these tamariki in this certain place in the world. Yeah, cool, but there's got to be a journey towards that. That's not just going to go like that overnight. So it's like, right, well, what are some of those short things? And see if God is going to breathe on that. See what God's going to say as we continue to push into those kinds of things. The other thing I want to say is, for couples as well, is that often in this journey for me and Stacey, I was feeling called into something. Stacey hadn't yet heard the calling. There's obviously going to be a tension and a few heated conversations in that kind of a setting. But I just want to encourage and just say, in that time, it's better just to relax. Instead of us trying to push something and try and drag someone into something that maybe they're not quite ready for, let's just relax. If God is going to call you to it, He's firstly called you to your marriage. He's firstly called you to your whānau before anything else. And I think that's incredibly important, otherwise it can cause hurt. And I'm so glad that my wife didn't just overnight go, bang. I'm so glad that it took her time to work things through. And it's very much not like, oh, I'm right all along, very much not. But it took time for her to go through this and actually think, actually, God, you are calling me to this. And if it hadn't gone through those years of her working out what that calling was, there'd be no depth to who we are as a couple. And so over the course of this, as God is beginning to talk to you over the next few days, as couples pray through this together, if there's one of you who's feeling something the other's not, it's all good. If we look through stories of the Bible, often it takes years and years and years for these kind of, for God's word to be spoken properly into people and for these things to come true. So I'd just like to encourage that, and don't rush that process of praying together and talking things through properly together. It's not, but those things that God has put on you is not going to happen. Sometimes they just take time, and that's all good. And we're so much in a culture where we expect things now, and those things, and we get them now, have absolutely no depth to them. So I just encourage you over the course of these next few days, continue to press into God, press into these dreams, but also just chill out on your partner as well. And Stacey was just got one last thing to share, which was about when we were talking to Ellie Mae about what we wanted to talk about tonight.
So one of the last difficulties we were talking about is how you bring your children along on the journey with you as well. And so that was a challenge in the beginning. Well, actually, it hasn't been too hard, to be honest. We've actually had really just lots of open conversation with our children, and the framework that we kind of explain everything to them by is about, well, what we feel like God is telling us to do this. And there's always lots of conversation about, oh, God, we feel like God's telling us to do this next. What do you think? And they have their little contributions and things like that as well. So that's been a big part of kind of the difficulty of bringing them along on the journey and making sure they're okay. Obviously, for us being in Auckland, away from family, it's been easy in the sense that the kids have had to participate in everything that we've participated in. So as much as we've been on the journey, they've been on the journey with us, which has made, for our whole whānau really. So yesterday I asked Ellie Mae, our daughter, our middle daughter, and I said, Ellie Mae, we're sharing about, this tonight. And I said, we're talking about, following God's calling. And what do you think, is there anything you think I should say? And she had two things to say. And the first one she said was, when you're following God's calling, if you feel lost, just remember it's okay because it's God who's the one who's guiding you, which is very sweet. And then the second one she said was, when you follow God's calling, He always gives you the best things. It's always the best things you get. When I moved to Auckland, I got to get a new best friend. So.
Oh, wow.
She is 7. Yeah.
Thank you so much, guys. Really appreciate it. Let's put our hands together for them.